All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so excited to spend my evening with you tonight, and I'm so thrilled that you were able to venture out in the rain and the cold and hang out with us for a little bit. So we are recording just because I want to be able to share this on YouTube and on Facebook, so just keep that in mind. So tonight we're going to talk about element 3 in our life book. How do you create what you want? So last time we got together, we went through the macro habits of health. And so now we're going to venture into how we can start taking those macro habits and putting them into practice in our life. So my name's Debbie. I have my husband Mike here with me. So last time I kind of gave you my story from the perspective of my weight loss journey. But what I have come to appreciate is the fact that this is not just a weight loss. There's so many other factors, so many other things that we can focus on and create in our lives. And so tonight, as I talk to you about my story, I want to focus more on the side of me as a mom. So when I started this program 2.5 years ago, I was working a full-time job plus a lot of hours. I had a very high-stress job, and it was pulling me in a lot of different directions, a lot of different hours. I wasn't seeing my kids. I wasn't seeing Mike very often. But in addition to that, I was exhausted. And I had come to think that exhaustion was just normal. I was getting older. I had just turned 40, and that was a way of life. All of my friends, everybody I knew, they were just as exhausted as I was. And so I just figured that's the way life is. It is a little after 6 o'clock on a Tuesday night right now. 2.5 years ago at 6 o'clock at night on a Tuesday evening, you would have found me curled up on my couch with a blanket watching TV. And that's pretty much where I would have been until bedtime, because I had no energy to do anything else. Dinners consisted of frozen, microwavable, or oven prepared meals, quick and easy, didn't have to do any cooking. Because I just, by the time I got home from work, was exhausted and didn't want to deal with it. We went out to eat a lot, we ordered in a lot. I'm pretty sure that Pizza Joe's and Shakora took a hit whenever we decided to get healthy, because we ordered from them at least once, if not twice a week. Just out of pure laziness and exhaustion. And so that is one of the things that I noticed very early on in my journey. I got into fat burn, and holy smokes, did my energy just like blow through the water. And it hasn't gone away. Even though for the last 2.5 years I have not been in fat burn the entire time, I am fueling my body in a cleaner, healthier way. And so what I'm finding is the less garbage I put into my system, the better I feel overall. And so on a Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, here I am standing here talking to you, and I'm not yawning, and I'm not like, oh my goodness, I just want to go home and go to bed. I feel great. And so I'm able to be that mom that I always had dreamt about being. I'm going to my kids' sporting events. I am playing with them out in the yard when the weather's nice. I'm able to do things with them instead of just sitting there watching TV, and if they wanted to spend time with me, they needed to be on the couch with me. It's not so much like that anymore, and I'm so grateful for this program giving me that back, to be able to have that time with my kids. So I'm going to let Mike come up and share a little bit of his story, and then we'll get into how we can create the life we want.
Hello. Thanks for being here this evening. So my name's Mike, and the opening slide posed the question, how do you create what you want? And we call that creating your why, or having your why strong in hand. And the idea is you have to have something that you're striving for. Sure, people want to lose weight, sure, people want to lose inflammation, sure, people want to be more flexible, so forth and so on. But the idea is, what are you going to get out of the change? Nobody wants to create change if it's not enjoyable. So you have to get something to give something. I guess that's more of my opinion, but people are much more easily on board with themselves whenever they accept the change has to happen and then they have a goal or a target to shoot for. You know, I mean, these are, of course, before and after pictures, you know, big, flabby, fluffy Mike versus not so fluffy Mike. And then, you know, look at this gorgeous thing over here, right? You know, I loved her no matter what size and shape she was. However, wow, right? Okay, so this was, this was probably just, what, a week
That was
ago?
last weekend.
That was last weekend, you know? So you're gonna bounce back a year or two, right? Topsoil, is that topsoil?
Yeah.
So that's a year or two back, and this is currently, right? So we first gotten into shape, and this is current, right? So it has sustainable results. This is not a diet program. Can you lose weight? Sure. But that is not our main goal. Our main goal is the idea of changing mindset, creating a new way of living to take forward for the rest of your life. Does your body start repairing things whenever you treat it right? I would say this program has proven to me yes. I was in a constant state of inflammation. You know, the job and the work that I did for years beat on my joints, anywhere from my knees to my shoulders to my elbows to my wrists. Whenever I started fueling and feeding my body properly, that inflammation also went away, along with about 46 pounds of fluff. So what do you want to create? And that is what we're here to talk about this evening. So with that, I'm going to let Deb go ahead and step back in, and we're going to start into the program for the evening.
All right, awesome. So wait for him to change my slide up. All right, so how do you create what you want? So at the core of this element, we're giving you the means of building new healthy habits to support your new behaviors and to then create the desired outcomes you want for your health and for your life. So we're going to take those healthy habits that we talked about last time, and we're going to look at those and figure out, okay, which one do I want to focus on for right now? Is it healthy weight management? Is it hydration? Is it sleep? What do I want to look at? What do I want to focus on? What do I want to improve? And that's how we're going to step forward through the rest of the evening. So this process allows you to organize your goals in a way that will help you focus on your primary habits. Through its 4 steps, you'll build in the pieces that make it easy to get it right the first time. So we're going to look at the 4 steps, which step 1 is we're going to use some structural tension to organize your macro habits. And so by doing that, we're going to take a look at the 6 macro habits and decide which one it is that we want to focus on. And for each person here, it might be different. Then we're going to go into step 2, and we're going to set up a habit loop so that we can really focus in on that specific habit of health. Step 3, we're going to identify some micro habits that we can install. And step 4, we're going to connect our present action to immediate and long-term rewards. So, using structural tension to organize your macro habits. Step 1 begins by picking which primary choice you're focusing on and what secondary choices support the transformation in that category. Each of the 6 macro habit categories has a series of primary choices that are essential for mastering that area of transformation. The secondary choices are the habits of health actions that support you to reach the desired outcome. So, I believe the next slide shows all 6 of the macro habits, if I'm correct. Yes. All right, so our 6 macro habits are weight management, eating and hydration, motion, sleep and energy management, healthy mind, and healthy surroundings. So, Mike, pick one that you want to work on.
I like sleep still.
Okay, so he wants to work on healthy sleep. So can you go back to the previous slide? Sorry, it's probably a little complicated. Is it possible? If not, that's okay.
Possibly.
So if we were going to create some structural tension related around sleep and energy management, what are some things that we might want to look at as a primary thing? So maybe what time we go to bed, what time we're waking up. Are we getting a good 7 to 8 hours of healthy sleep each night? What are we doing before we go to bed that is giving us the opportunity to wind down a little bit and get ourselves into a state where we can be fully at rest? Those are the things that you want to look at as far as your primary actions and choices, and then we can start working on micro habits that we can put into practice for that. So next slide is going to be step 2. So step 2, which is cue, routine, reward. This is our habit loop. So as we said, once we figure out what we're working on, what that primary macro habit is, we create that structural tension of thinking about where we need to really focus in on. So I'm going to say for Mike, knowing him personally and living with him, the area that he probably needs to focus on the most is his twilight hour, right before he goes to bed. Because he tends to get his mind going, and doesn't give himself any time to shut down before he tries to go to bed. And then he lays down and his mind is still racing and going, but his body is tired. But because his mind's still going, he's not able to fully sleep. And so some nights he doesn't get restful sleep because his mind hasn't shut off yet. So the cue could be that Mike decides that he's going to go to bed at 10 p.m. and he's going to get up at 5 a.m. and that gives him his 7 hours of healthy sleep. So maybe he puts an alarm on his phone for 9 p.m. that, hey, this is your twilight hour. Let's stop the blue light. Let's turn the phone off. Let's read a book. Let's do some journaling. Let's do some meditation. Let's do some devotions, some prayers, whatever it's going to be that's going to help Mike simmer down for the evening. That's going to be the routine. He's going to create that healthy routine for himself. And the reward is going to be by 10 o'clock, his brain is going to be ready for that healthy sleep. So he can wake up the next morning and feel well rested. And we can really use this for anything. So maybe weight management. You want to start losing weight. So we're going to eat 6 times a day. Cue, set an alarm for every 3 hours. Reward, a routine is you're going to eat. You're going to fuel your body. And the reward is you're going to feel satisfied, you're going to feel full, and you're going to start losing weight. There's so many different ways that we can use this system to get the outcomes that we're looking for.
I think it's important to say here too, I'm just going to stand back here and say it. The idea of cue, routine, reward can also instill and can reinforce a bad habit as well. So the idea of creating a healthy habit and then creating the cue, routine, reward habit loop is equally as powerful whenever you want to eliminate a bad or unhealthy habit.
And I can definitely attest to that because that is how I quit smoking. I used this right here to figure out what my cues were to cause me to want to smoke. And when I figured out what those triggers were, that's when I was able to identify my routine. The reward was the cigarette. But once I was able to really figure out what those cues were, I was able to then change what my routine was. So I would be triggered, and instead of having the cigarette, I eliminated that and changed it to something else. And so if anybody is trying to quit smoking and needs some assistance with that, I'd be happy to help you with that because I found a way to do it that really, really worked for me, and I haven't had a cigarette in almost 1.5 years now, thanks to this. So the next step is identifying the micro habits to install. So a micro habit of health, by definition, is easy to do and always within your ability in terms of ease or effort. They take into account other limiting factors such as time constraints. So one thing that I like to think about as far as a micro habit that's really easy for me to fit in when I'm thinking about extra healthy motion, a micro habit that I have started to do, and I continue to do this every single time I go anywhere, I park in the very back of the parking lot so that I have to walk further to get in the store. It gets me extra steps, it's extra healthy motion, it's a micro habit to that macro habit, and it's just reinforcing what I'm trying to get to. And it's something that I can do anytime, anywhere. So for your macro habit of sleep, Mike, what is a micro habit that you could install to help you get where you want to go?
One of the micro habits that I have installed is the idea of a twilight hour, and the twilight hour is pretty much how she described it. So I avoid screen time. I actually avoid thinking too much. Some people would suggest that you make big plans for the next day. I found that does not work for myself. That actually winds my mind up more. So I'll do things like I'll read a book, or I will just relax and hang out with the family.
Awesome. So no matter what macro habit you choose, there's always different micro habits that we can install. That no matter where you are, whether you're on vacation or no matter where you're at, you can always instill those into your day. All right. So the last step is connecting that present action to the immediate and long-term rewards. So how many times have you gone to bed and said you're going to get up in the morning and exercise, yet when morning comes, you're once again hitting the snooze alarm and saying, I'll start tomorrow. How can we connect our future self back to our present self so we make decisions that are in our mutual best interest? We need to bring immediate feedback to actions that create future benefits. So, you've decided you want to get up and run in the morning. Why not call a friend that lives nearby and ask them to come and run with you? That way, in the morning when the alarm goes off, you'll decide to get up rather than push the snooze alarm, because the immediate consequence of letting a friend down forces you to get into action. And so the idea of creating immediate consequences for your choices and your actions to help motivate you and keep you moving towards your goals so that you are accomplishing what your future self wants you to accomplish. Lead from the future, act in the now. That's one of our habits of leadership. And so what we tend to do is think about, okay, this is where I want to go. This is what my goal is. So what does the future me look like? What is future me doing? And what can I start doing now to start acting like that person? So when we're looking at Mike wanting to go to bed earlier, wind down before he gets into bed so you can get that healthy sleep, what do you think some immediate actions could be to give you some long-term reward?
Some immediate actions. Well, as you mentioned earlier, the idea of picking a time, knowing a time, having a plan, knowing what time you're waking up in the morning comes in with great help.
But what if you don't want to wake up in the morning?
Well, I can tell you what I use, and that is, I've created a habit based on some of the Robbins theory of the 5-second rule. So for myself, if I wake up in the morning and I feel that I don't want to get out of bed, I 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I launch. And on launch, you move. And then I'm out of bed and I'm up and going.
Nice. Awesome. All right. So with that, we are creating a transformational cycle. We're starting out with that cue. We're moving into the routine, the instant reward, and what our long-term investment is going to be. So for Mike, his cue is at 9 o'clock. It's time to start shutting down. He goes into his twilight hour. He goes to sleep. And his long-term investment is he feels well rested. He's ready for the day. And on the days that he just doesn't want to get out of bed, he has a method in place that allows him that motivation to say, you know what, no, it's time for me to get up, and I'm going to get up and go.
But I think it's important to say too, there are especially with healthy rest, your body needs that, your mind needs that, your brain performs so much better whenever it has a chance to reset and properly reset. And you know, there's ways to read into and study what your sleep cycle is, and you know, that's something that could be dug into a little deeper, but not at this stage.
Awesome. Okay. So Dr. A says, primary choice is about deciding that we want one thing, optimal health for example, more than something else. Secondary choice is about taking the daily actions that support our primary choice. For example, choosing not to have the banana split. Through the system of the Habits of Health and a variety of easy daily activities, we will use these powerful habits to put you on track for sustainable long-term transformation and help you obtain optimal health and well-being. So with that, I'm going to open the floor up to any questions. If anybody, either if you're watching online or if you're here, if you're interested in learning a little bit more, having a conversation with us, we'll be happy to talk with you. If you weren't able to make it tonight, we can always hop on a phone call with you or do a Zoom or meet with you one-on-one. But any of you that have any questions or want to talk, we're happy to stay afterwards. The next slide shows a few of our clients and some of their progress. I'm really proud of a lot of our clients. They have rocked their journeys, done amazing, and so I just like to showcase them a little bit and give them a little shout out because they are just doing amazing. So with that, I thank you all so much for coming. I thank you for viewing online, and hopefully we'll be talking to you soon.